Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of our flagship stations 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, both of our television channels on Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99. We're on the radio as well in Bloomfield Hills on 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. Online in high definition, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link or join us on the small player at the top right of our homepage each and every day, and you can view our programming throughout the day there as well, 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. We're also on Facebook via Facebook Live, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. And as always, joining me here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township is Ronnie Dahl.
So you're saying we hope we are live on our social media
had some
sites.
had some technical issues this morning that went right down to the wire, but we had some of course big storms that came through over the weekend. I was in here yesterday because we were doing some special coverage of the Orchard Lake Fine Arts Show, and you can find some of those interviews already on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15, with some of the artists at the show yesterday. And our generator was on. Most of our regular essential equipment was also on, but of course, with the power outages and things going down and coming back up, some things can get disconnected and have to be reset and all of that. So we went through some checks this morning before the show, and hopefully everything is going well outside of the room. So as far as I know, once we close those doors, any fires that are going on outside of the room, I'm being let known by text from the rest of our staff, and you can only fight so many fires outside of the room from inside of the room that's not currently on fire.
That is so true. And I will say, I was walking over here and my phone, last weekend I was on the lake, my phone got damaged, I got a new phone, and of course they send you a free refurbished phone, even though you've been paying enough on the insurance to buy 5 phones over by this point in time, and it's already acting up, and it's been 2 days. But I will say the storms were crazy. So many people in the area still without power. They have confirmed now that we had 4, possibly 5 tornadoes that touched down here in the state of Michigan on Wednesday. I know that at some point in time it was headed straight for Kegel.
Yeah, it was really pretty interesting. I was doing just a workout at home, and I was finishing up and stretching and all that, and I could see outside my window. It was starting to get kind of dark, and there was definitely some rain coming in. And I was expecting storms. I knew that the storms were going to be coming in. Earlier on, the reports were that it was going to be mid-afternoon, and then it was going to be around 8 o'clock. And I get a call from my dad as I'm finishing up, and he's just like, "Hey, there's a tornado warning in your area right now." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Let me look it up real quick. I haven't heard the sirens or anything go off." And I look it up, and I see on the Weather Channel's website that says severe thunderstorm warning in your area. I'm like, "Okay, no, it's just a severe thunderstorm warning." I turned on the TV to see if they had anything on those reports, and I didn't see anything at that moment. And then I start hearing the sirens off in the distance. I'm standing right by my air conditioner, so I'm like, "All right, Dad, I'm going to put the phone down, turn the AC off, and make sure I am, in fact, hearing the siren." And I did. So I immediately hung up with my dad and said, "Sorry, I got to go. I got to take 2 minutes and put all my tornado plan into effect and get into the bathroom and scare the living life out of my cats, or at least one of them." Jax was just chilling there, but Idle scurried right off into her little corner for the majority of the storm.
I was in the grocery store.
Oh, even better place.
And I thought I kind of heard. I was like, but I was at the Kroger. So if I have to do grocery shopping, I go to Trader Joe's. Do you go to more than one grocery store?
Usually it's either Kroger or I go to Meijer.
I have different things I buy at different grocery stores. So I did the Trader Joe's, and then I was in Kroger, and my husband called me, and he's like, "Hey, don't you hear the sirens?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, there's a tornado warning. We're on the air right now." Because he was at work. He's like, I go, "Oh, I'm at the grocery store." Right. And he goes, "Well, you should take cover." "What, in the grocery store?"
Yeah. Well,
no one seemed to do anything. And then when I hung up with him, I could hear the sirens going off. But we just kept shopping.
Yeah. They put you in a single file line that you got to wait for 25 minutes to get through to get to shelter area.
Right. Well, I will say, though, one of the reasons, if I have enough time, I try to do my shopping over at the Kroger at Lasser and Maple, because they always tend to have more people, more employees there checking people out. Because I'm sorry, but if I go through the self-checkout, I want a discount. Give me a Kroger discount. In some Kroger stores, it's like, and I know there's a shortage of employees right now, but some stores, like, it's your only option.
Right.
And, it's like when you have fruits and vegetables and you have to weigh them. But, but I got out, and then my girlfriend called me, and she's like, where are you right now? And I was on the road, but I will say I was going up Lasser. So I said, oh, let me go up Telegraph because there aren't near as many trees.
Right.
And, more people around if you get in trouble and stuff.
Sure.
But I made it home. But Telegraph in Orchard Lake and Middle Belt, it was flooded, which I've never seen it like that. Mm-hmm. And there was a car in front of me. And, and when you get in those situations, too, you kind of have to, if you're going to go through, because obviously you shouldn't go through water such as that, but it wasn't that bad at that point in time. But you wait for one car and then you go and then another car. But this, I think the car in front of me, and it was like a Ford, I don't know, Escort or something. It's a small car. And they went the same time another car went through, and it tore off their front bumper. But not all the way. It was hanging. So they got stuck, and I will say, we all stopped to help them, but it was like, do you have a bungee cord? Do you have a bungee cord? Who has string? What can we do? And someone's like, I have shopping bags. Can we tie those together? But I will say that's the one thing. When you go through these situations, everyone was pulling over to help them. Yeah. So that's always the great thing to see.
Yeah, and that's a really good story, and that's really an inspiring thing to hear, because in that situation, it could easily be an everybody for themselves situation, and to have people trying to help other people get through that, knowing that helping this one person get through the line is going to help you and help everyone else behind you get through the line and get to safety as quick as possible, then that's what we should be doing for other people in those situations and in any other situation, whether it is an emergency like that where there's a tornado in the general area or there's severe weather or not.
Yeah, so, and I will say thank you to my husband for throwing an umbrella in my car. Although we were already soaked standing out there. I was like, wait, I have an umbrella.
Yeah.
Let me hold the umbrella over you as you try to put your bumper on.
Sure.
But everyone was like, can we follow you? Where are you going? I'm 5 minutes away. Do you want us to follow you? Make sure you get out, But again, that's kind of why we live in the community in which we live in. Everyone looks out for one another. So that's always the great thing. But I will say DTE is now saying for so many people, because White Lake got hit really hard. Pontiac got hit pretty hard. My brother went through there yesterday to get to my house, and huge trees down all over Pontiac, and then the lights were out. And, you have to remember the ground is so saturated already from all of the water and all the rain that we've had that it cannot take a lot. Although Saturday's storm was crazy, to bring down some of these huge trees. So.
Yeah, I was driving through the area yesterday. I'd helped my dad with some trees that had somewhat fallen down in his yard over the course of the last several storms, and they were already coming down before that. And on my way home, I took Pontiac Trail home, and going through Commerce Township and getting into the Novi and Wixom area, there were several trees. In fact, there was one that was completely covering an entire lane and a half or so of the road that I had seen up the street. Put my emergency lights on, went into the middle turn lane at about half the speed limit, and it had emergency tape already around it. So I mean, there were definitely crews that had already been out there, but that's just a minor version of what we've seen all throughout the area here in Oakland County, as those tornadoes did come through the western part of the county and go right across. And during that storm, I mean, a lot of the reports were saying that the storm's heading northeast. It's going to be going through, the Pontiac area around, Kego Harbor and those areas as well, and White Lake, and all these areas need to be really being careful, because that's the direct path. And of course, it did end up being the direct path.
I will say, for anyone out there, if you get the chance, you have a smartphone, download the Oakland County Sheriff's Department app, because it sends you the weather alerts. And I have certain other TV stations, their apps, but I will say the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, they tend to come through quicker with so many of these alerts. It's a free download. So it just, for the weather portion of it, it's a good app for you to have. Tyler, I will say though, yesterday turned out to be a great day.
Yeah.
I hosted, we always have a Sunday family dinners, and my nephew is about to go back to college, and Woody had to work nightside last night, so I hosted at my house Sunday brunch. So my sister's house is much bigger and well equipped to host our entire family. There's 8 of us. And she's also like, they're plant-based, or this one's gluten-free, and this, that. There's so many like rules or regulations it's hard to keep up with. But she's a really good cook, and my niece is a really good cook. But I'm like, okay, I can do Sunday brunch.
Sure.
I can handle that, right? And so everyone came over for Sunday brunch. It got a little muggy, but under our gazebo it was nice. And we put out a new bird feeder. And we hung it Saturday morning, and Woody's like, where do you want it? I go, right there. And he goes, what about the deer? I'm like, no, they can't reach it. They'll be okay.
Right.
No.
Well, they reached it.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no.
And we're out there eating, and the deer just saunters up. Like, hello?
Right.
Like, not even afraid of us
So
anymore.
rude. Just say hello, at least.
Not
you know?
even afraid of us anymore. And we're like, go.
Not even an excuse me. Can I come over here and eat your bird food while you're enjoying your time together with your family?
It's been crazy. This morning I went out, and he just looked at me like, what do you want?
Right.
I'm like, get out of here. I was from me to you away from this deer before
Oh, wow.
it finally turned around and left.
It kind of happened to me on Thursday night last week. We did the West Bloomfield Parks meeting over here, and I walked, of course, back over to their parking lot, because that's our life. And as I'm walking to my car, I see a deer, and it's standing like under the tree in the parking area, maybe 1 or 2 parking spaces away from where I had parked my vehicle. And as I'm approaching the car, it's just standing there, staring me down. And as I'm walking, I go and I make a little perimeter around it, and it's just following me with its eyes the entire time. And finally I unlock the car, and that's when it kind of gets startled and scurried off. But it's just standing there like, yeah, no, what do you want? Like, what do I want? You're in my area there.
Happy to see you.
Come on.
I will say too, and they're so cute though.
They are.
When they get close. But
Sure.
so we did the Irish Spring shavings
Yeah.
in my flower beds because they ate
famously.
the first row of my hydrangea, but not the taller one. So I put the Irish Spring soap down as suggested. By the Waterford Township supervisor, and they seem to be leaving those away. But I did get a new tomato plant over the weekend, and it already had like 5 baby cherry tomatoes that were probably a few days away from being picked. And Woody looks over and he goes, "Where are your tomatoes? Did you pick them?"
Oh, no.
I'm like,
But I know who did. Oh, no.
I'm putting a trail cam up at my house, by
Yeah.
the way. Hey, we're going to jump through the headlines real quick because we've been rambling here a little bit just to make sure the services are up and running. So, no surprise here, 17 cases of COVID-19 identified in Faster Horses Festival. So, at least 70 cases COVID-19 have been identified in people who attended Michigan's Faster Horses Festival last weekend. According to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, some of those individuals were infectious while at the 3-day country music festival at Michigan International Speedway in Brooklyn. So the MDHHS is warning those who attended the festival may have been exposed to the virus, urging all attendees to get tested. The agency is working with local public health departments to investigate the cases. Faster Horses Festival officials said they work closely with local officials to ensure all recommended guidelines were followed, and they strongly encourage everyone who can to get vaccinated. No surprise here.
No surprise at all that a massive event like this, that was because of the circumstances, loosely enforcing the full vaccination, no need for a mask rules, because they can't exactly go and get proof, that you had some breakthroughs come by. People that were wearing masks that were vaccinated were magically not actually vaccinated and spreading COVID-19 around. So no surprise when you have a big event like this, and we're kind of in the wild west of the COVID-19 pandemic now, with vaccines being available, but not everybody necessarily being vaccinated or being vaccinated, and not necessarily being honest about their vaccination. And so, when you go to these large events like this, you can go there being vaccinated, not wearing a mask, but you also need to be careful about it, because there may be a chance that you're spreading it to people that say they've been vaccinated but haven't been vaccinated, and may end up with a case of COVID-19 and learning things the hard way.
So over the weekend, I don't know if you follow our Oakland County executive, Dave Coulter, on social media, but he posted the big number.
Yes.
Oakland County surpasses 70% vaccination rate. Some counties lag behind. Oakland County has reached the state and national vaccination rate goal of having at least one dose administered to 70% of adults. And a handful of other counties aren't far behind. So Michigan's second largest county accounts for 1.2 million people and is the second in the state to reach the goal. Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter announced Friday that while this is a milestone, the county is wary of highly transmittable COVID-19 variants that continue to spread. As of Tuesday, Michigan had 13,772 confirmed cases of COVID-19 variants, the majority being the B.1.1.17, which of course is the Delta variant. So keep that in mind as you go out. We reach the number, but if the other counties around us don't reach the number, doesn't really matter.
Right. It's more about calculating the population that has been vaccinated on a large scale. And you want those larger counties like Oakland County, like Wayne County, like the city of Detroit, those areas to be the ones that you're seeing get to these numbers, because then you have a larger pool of the statewide numbers that have been getting vaccinated. So Oakland County from the onset was very much pushing to get vaccinations out to the public. They had all those rather large vaccination events and had different clinics all throughout the local area, at fire stations, police stations, other public places, at the county office, and so on, to provide ample opportunity for people to get vaccinated, and people took those opportunities. And so good on the people of Oakland County for going out and doing their research, making the best decision for themselves and their families, and getting vaccinated. And that's why we've seen ourselves get to 70% before a lot of other places in the local area. That being said, this may be an example for effectively getting there, but it's going to be different in every different area because you have different constraints, different beliefs, and different access to information.
Well, and that comes at the same time that Fauci says the U.S. is headed in the wrong direction on the coronavirus. The United States is in an unnecessary predicament of soaring COVID-19 cases fueled by unvaccinated Americans and the Delta variant. The nation's top infectious disease expert said Sunday, "We're going in the wrong direction." Dr. Anthony Fauci, describing himself as very frustrated. He said recommending the vaccinated wear mask is under active consideration by the government's leading public health officials. Also, booster shots may be suggested for people with suppressed immune systems who have been vaccinated. Fauci, who also serves as President Biden's chief medical advisor, told CNN's State of the Union that he has taken part in conversations about altering the mask guidelines. He noted that some local jurisdictions where infection rates are surging, such as LA County, are already calling on individuals to wear masks in indoor public spaces, regardless of their vaccination status. So nearly 163 million people, or 49% of the eligible U.S. population, are vaccinated. That's according to the CDC. So people are still hesitant, and this is why we are where we are, and which says we're not out of this pandemic just yet.
No, we're nowhere near it, and that's why I had my concerns and my questions earlier on when things started to open up so rapidly around the 50% vaccinated, or 50% with their first of 2 doses of vaccination, being that kind of benchmark in a lot of places where things started to reopen so rapidly and then eventually reopened entirely before we were anywhere near 70%. Now we're at this case where people have had a situation where they've been allowed to get complacent. They've been allowed to have their guard go down naturally because things are reopening, and people have been so eager to get things reopened and get back to normal life. And that creates a situation where it's a lot easier to have the spread of a virus like this, especially when there's more contagious versions of the virus out there, such as the Delta variant, the UK variant, the Gamma variant, and so on, that are spreading around. So there's due concern here, and considerations do have to be made. And as a lot of our leaders have said previously, we're reopening things, but if the situation does start to turn backwards and start to turn awry again, tough decisions may have to be made, and we may have to gradually roll back our reopenings, which would be a really, really big shame.
I will say, though, good luck trying to get back.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't see people are going to put a mask back on.
No.
And I will say, I was out over the weekend, and I was surprised how many people are still putting a mask on.
Yeah.
You go some places and there are none, but then you go others, and there are quite a few people, because at the end of the day, it's your comfort level, and I know vaccinated people that are still wearing a mask as well. So, as a reminder, you can always get the latest headlines. Go to civiccentertv.com, click on the coronavirus tab, and then at the top of the link, or top of the page rather, of course, we have the direct links to various resources for you to do a little bit of homework on your own. The CDC, State of Michigan, as well as Oakland County. I check their section every morning, too, for latest press releases coming out regarding our local area here. So with that, we are going to get the show rolling. My phone's a little wonky, so I haven't seen, is our first guest connected or not?
Yes, we do have Senator Runestad on with us.
So, see, my phone is just Apple. I'm telling you, I'm in an abusive relationship with Apple.
They're the worst.
So we'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, State Senator Jim Runestad will be with us here on the Megacast.
Here's one more reason to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your shot to win. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
Thank you for taking time out of your Monday to be with us here on the Megacast. It's a crazy weekend throughout the area because wicked weather moved throughout the area at a fast clip. And I will say I have so many friends that are waking up without electricity this morning, and we think about all of them. And also so many people who had their basements flooded yet again. But we want to go ahead and bring in State Senator Jim Runestad. He's, you were kind of ground zero for the storm. How are you, Senator?
I'm doing good. Thankfully, I guess there was one injury in our area from the storm, but no deaths. And that is really a blessing because many of the homes that I saw, trees had landed right on the homes, crushing homes. So it's just very, very fortunate that nobody was killed.
And that is one of the fortunate things. I think they said that we had nearly, they think 4 to 5 tornadoes confirmed that have touched down through the state of Michigan over the weekend from the Saturday storms. But once we kind of collect our breath, we're okay, then the cleanup begins. And that can be challenging for so many people.
It really is. We have no electricity. I'm actually about 5 miles away from the home in order to be able to connect. And so there's people that don't have generators. They have no electricity. They have water in the homes. I had 2 neighbors completely flooded because one, a tree landed on the roof, allowing the water to come gushing in. Another one, the whole roof was a big part of the roof was torn off. And I've seen this all over in the subdivision behind us, roofs torn off, which means the water poured in. So they're dealing with no electricity, water in the home, trees down everywhere. So yeah, it's very devastating.
And we should point out today it's going to be about 90 degrees. A little hard to try to tackle some of these cleanup duties.
It's going to be very hard because this is strenuous work. Just trying to get limbs collected up yesterday with not that temperature was tough. It's going to be very tough in 90-degree weather.
So other than having no electricity at your home, were you guys pretty much undamaged?
No, we had a barn that was hit. The back of our house was hit, but nothing like I've seen with neighbors where it was just absolute devastation. Ours is certainly going to be something we can deal with, but I had neighbors that were so distraught because they've lost, mementos and things that can't be replaced inside their homes. So it just really was random in terms of how it attacked. I mean, one house could be just a little bit in that path and be torn apart, and another one mostly unscathed. So it's just how these things work.
It really is crazy, Mother Nature, how it does work. And as someone who has covered so many tornadoes, it's the same scenario, which you just described. Were you home Saturday night when it came through?
Actually, my wife was home, and I was visiting a friend. The warning went off, and we came inside, and he's got kind of a fortress-style home, so we weren't too worried about that. But I was looking out the windows, was just a blinding whiteness. You couldn't see anything. And as soon as it cleared, I saw my wife had texted me to come home. And so I tried to get home. Every path I took was blocked. I had to go this circuitous route and zigzagging down dirt roads around trees, and finally got home, and she was very happy to have me at the house because it was just so devastating. We just didn't know what it all meant till we had time to really digest it. But yeah, it was a terrible night, terrible yesterday.
And, when we think about so many of these families, especially the ones when it comes to flooding, because we know, a lot of people too, their basements are flooding for the second and third time in just so many weeks as well. But on top of that, if we can kind of put on your senator hat, if I can talk to you a little bit more about some of the bills that you're pushing forward and having to do with our infrastructure, because we know Michigan is not sitting pretty when it comes to our roads and our bridges, especially our bridges.
Yes, we just allocated a record amount of money to repair these bridges. We've got some of the worst bridges in the nation, and I'm so pleased that of the money that we're getting from the federal government, it concerns me greatly, the totality of it, and then some of it's money that I think could be evaporated if it isn't used properly. This money for infrastructure is the right kind of use for this money, because these are structural deficits that, if they are not fixed, are going to eventually become real health and safety issues. So I'm so happy we're getting these dollars allocated to fixing these bridges. One of the ones that needs to be done in terms of, it's not actually a bridge, but a railroad overpass, is on Beck Road in Oakland County, and it's hindering a lot of development. It is the number one bottleneck in Oakland County, and some of these federal and state funds are going to be used to offset getting that fixed. So there's a lot of great stuff in this infrastructure bill here in Michigan.
And I will say that's one thing it seems like that both sides of the aisle can agree upon, is that our infrastructure here in the U.S. is not up to par, and there are so many things that need to be repaired. If anyone, I will tell you, I remember doing the story years ago, an investigation into the state of the bridges, and once you do it, it's so eye-opening, the status, and you'll never cross a bridge and not think about it, because when you see those huge chunks of concrete laying around, and we've had so many cases here where, pieces of the bridge have fallen off and hit cars as they've been passing, over or under some of these bridges and overpasses. So it's great to see that you're able to get this done.
Yeah, I'm very excited because, like you just described, everyone in Michigan driving around under bridges are concerned is a piece of that bridge going to fall off and plunge through the windshield. So it's going to make a huge difference getting this infrastructure back to good stability. And that is one of the prime uses of money like this. We don't want to use it for things that are not really going to impact the long term. These dollars will certainly impact the long term.
State Senator Jim Runestad with us here on the Megacast. He represents the 15th District, which includes portions of our viewing area, but also White Lake, where he lives, and of course, where it was confirmed a tornado touchdown over the weekend. And if I can ask you, Senator, so many people, when they see these stories, they want to go to the area. Can homeowners get back into the area? Because are there still down power lines as well? Because we know DTE and Consumers Edison, their crews have been working around the clock. It's like they've not had a break from these summer storms.
Yeah, I would advise people to not come out and take a look around. There is down power lines everywhere, all around our house. All the lines are down. So you have these lines just everywhere, and you don't know if they're hot or not. And so there's a lot of danger associated with this. And they're telling us it may be a couple more days before they're able to get this cleaned up. So it's a tremendous amount of damage, and DTE is going to be going nonstop. We see these trucks that are everywhere trying to deal with the trees. There's still fallen trees all over the place. Some roads you still cannot even get down because of the trees. So it's a scene of devastation, and I would encourage people to not be making a trip out here, because just the regular residents getting around is challenging.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to get through. So for people who are kind of like those gawkers, and we know they go after every storm, it's not a good time or place to be able to do it, because the crews are already trying to manage the destruction that happened and trying to clean it up. And with that, going through this, does it kind of change your viewpoint on, our electrical grid? Because so many other states, I think, are ahead of us in trying to put some of these power lines underground rather than above ground.
That's an excellent question, and it's one I'm going to raise to the Senate caucus about, can we use some round of this money to try to facilitate getting these wires under the ground, because they simply don't have the problems if they're underground that we have when they're above ground. And if these infrastructure dollars are there, they really should be used for the long-term fixes, and that may be one of those long-term fixes, is getting these wires underground, because yes, it makes a tremendous difference.
Well, we definitely hope that you and your family are safe, and our thoughts are with everyone in your community, because we know thankfully no one was seriously injured, but the cleanup and trying to rebuild your house, and like you said, it's those sentimental things that you lose that you never ever get back.
Yes, I feel so sorry for my neighbors. They're the best people you could ever want for neighbors, and they're just absolutely devastated at the losses that they've experienced. So, our hearts and prayers go out to them, and we'll do what we can do. I was amazed at how many neighbors came out with chainsaws, and that we're going around neighbor to neighbor and trying to at least get the main shrubs and trees out of driveways so people can get in and out. There was a lot of pulling together yesterday.
It does, sometimes these storms and these crises, they bring us together as a community. We'll go ahead, because we know that you do not have electricity, so we don't want to take up your valuable phone power, electricity. I still remember my husband has an FJ Cruiser, and when we lost electricity, I had to run an extension cord from his car to my house to be able to blow dry my hair and curl it. Sure. I mean, look, when you're on TV, you can't go all nasty looking. See, so you guys don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I had to do a bird bath this morning
oh boy.
Because we don't have a shower or anything else. So, yeah, we're going to keep working on it when I get home.
Well, we want to let you go, too, and get to that. But once you get recovered, we'd love to have you back on the show because there's so much going on with the nursing homes, and I know that you've been front and center on that issue. We'd love to talk to you about that further. But go be with your family. Hopefully, the electricity comes on sooner rather than later. And again, thank you for your time and thank you for being there for your community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Again, Senator Jim Runestad for the 15th District, White Lake. He lives in the community that was hit by the tornadoes. It has been confirmed that a tornado did indeed touch down. And so, Tyler, a lot of times right after these storms, people will say a tornado, but it's suspected until the National Weather Service comes in and actually does an assessment. And they have confirmed that it was a tornado that touched down. I believe it was, White Lake, Genesee County.
I know Armada was one of those areas that was noted. They had some surveyors out there actually that night after it did allegedly pass through that had seen some evidence on the ground of tornadic activity.
So it's really amazing if you ever get to, they're kind of tornado sleuths in a way, and that they go through and they follow the path and they'll look to see at the damage, but if there was a sign, like let's say a street sign that was twisted in a certain way, then that helps them determine not only if it was straight line winds, which can be just as devastating sometimes, or if it was a tornado and then what category of a tornado as well. Maybe we should try to get someone from the National Weather Service, or we could always try to maybe get one of the meteorologists, Rich Luderman, or one of the meteorologists on to come and kind of talk about that stuff.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to get that perspective too, and learn a little bit about how they assess these storms, not only going into them, but afterwards, so that we can learn more about what exactly happened to our communities and how we can maybe work to prevent that kind of damage in the future.
And hey, just so people, like most people don't know it, because when you see Rich Luderman, you see him in his forecast mode, right? He is hilarious. Like, could be a stand-up comic hilarious.
Yeah, I've met him just in passing a couple of times, and you could tell just in basic conversation that he's got that sense of humor, and he's really, really good with other people.
He is just, it's like you laugh, and laugh some more. Hey, but we do wish all of them out in White Lake and all of the communities impacted. Again, we know so many people here locally are still without power as well. So if you can reach out a helping hand, maybe drop off some ice to your neighbor if they don't have power or electricity. Do a couple of those little nice things to help them get through this. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we'll be speaking with the CEO and the president for the Detroit Chamber of Commerce. That's next here on the Megacast.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Here's one more reason to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your shot to win. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Trevor Project is sharing how you can support LGBTQ youth who may be at risk.
It's simple. Just show them that you care. C-A-R-E. Connect. If you noticed any warning signs of suicide from someone you know, reach out to them.
Ask, Ask directly, are you thinking about killing yourself? It might be challenging, but talking about suicide is proven to reduce risk.
Respond. If they open up to you about their suicidal ideation, honor that trust by responding with compassion and empathy.
Empower. Talking openly is a great first step, but now you can empower them with the information and the support they need to improve their situation.
Learn more about how you can show them you care and help prevent LGBTQ youth suicide. Visit trvr.org/care.
To Sofia and Gabriel, even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios with Mr. Tyler Keefe. I was just text messaging one of my friends, another one of our friends. They're without electricity. And just like State Senator Runestad was saying, it could be a couple days before they get through. So, again, like anyone who's out there, just reach out to people. Everyone wants to help if you need some ice. You know, some food, because we do know that especially when you lose electricity, they say don't open your freezer and your refrigerator as much as possible. But the longer this goes on, when in doubt, throw it out is the word when it comes to your food. Just stay safe. So you know what? I always say just bring out the grill, cook it all up, and have a neighborhood barbecue.
Yeah, why not? You know, especially at that point where you know it's going to go bad over several days, that you could potentially be out of power. Why not, you know, get it prepared with everyone else? And you know what? If everyone's got their coolers out there, once you get through some of the beverages and you still have some ice in those coolers, throw the leftovers in there, and you know, everyone can just have a little bit extra with them until they run out.
I did just text her. I'm like, hey, I can bring ice. Cold beer, tequila, if you're at that level.
Right, you know.
We're here for you.
Frustrating.
She's a really good cook, though, so I don't want to cook for her because I'd be embarrassed.
Yeah, it's okay. You know, some people have that talent, and you know, you don't want to show up there and with their expectations being high.
I'll stop by the local restaurant.
Sure.
Then I can blame it on them if they don't like it. And there are a lot of restaurants to go to.
Yes.
Especially if you go to the city of Troy. Troy really is kind of like the food mecca here local.
Yeah, it is. A lot of great restaurants out there in Troy, and you know, especially now as they're reopening and they got that renewed energy to them with the full capacity, they're doing great work.
Let's bring in Tara Tomcsik-Husak. She's the president and CEO for the Troy Chamber of Commerce. Tara, great to have you with us.
Hi, good to see you. Good to be back.
How's your summer going?
Long. It's busier than ever, as like you mentioned, we are the mecca of restaurants. I don't know if I'd call it mecca, but we have a ton of fantastic restaurants. All the transitions as they were reopening. So it's been a busy time.
But Troy is one of those places that when I look back, it's like when I meet people, you either typically meet them Birmingham, but a lot of times Troy, because it's right there off the freeway. So if they're coming from Detroit and you're coming from Oakland County, it's like that meeting spot in the middle. And I would say it would be easy to get off 75. But
it normally is. I mean, we just got through all the traffic from the construction and then obviously the tanker fire. So just glad everyone is okay for that. But yeah, the diverging diamonds have actually been wonderful.
So with that too, but when you get off of the highway and they have it's like that weird go into the other lane and then no, you're going into the right lane. I always get a little freaked out, and I'm sure that's happening with everyone.
I did get a little freaked out the first probably 6 times. Now I got it. But it does move quicker. I will say it makes sense once you learn it, and then it's good to go. It does smooth traffic up quite a bit.
So with that, Tara, tell us, how are things in the city of Troy? Because whenever I go to Somerset, which I've been there way too much, Apple. But no, not for fun things, because I'm dealing with, first you have to go to the Mac store to get my husband's makeup all the time. And they always look at me like, oh, that shade's too dark. I'm like, no. Where's my regular person? I'm like,
they know me. It's fine.
I know. Just give me these colors. But going back and forth to the Apple store like every other week to deal with them. But of course, every time you go to the Apple store and there's line out the door, where do you go? Well, I'm right here. Let me go to Macy's. Oh, let me go to the Detroit store. How about Zara? So shopping seems to be doing okay, at least at the mall.
It seems like business is picking up for all the industries, which is really great to see. I mean, our restaurants are still really busy. It's good to see everybody back inside as well. And obviously with the indoor-outdoor dining during the summer, it's going to be really great to help them catch up a little bit. But you're seeing more businesses move into Troy as well. So I think that's more exciting. We have probably 2 to 3 ribbon cuttings a week, and that's a substantial number. So it just tells you how great Troy is for a business to move into, but also to start building partnerships and relationships, which is what obviously the Troy Chamber does.
So with these businesses, what types of businesses? Are they mainly, companies that are going into office buildings or retail?
It's not so much retail. I would say for the most part, it's a lot of IT companies. We've had a few daycares open up. We've had a few new restaurants because, we could always use more restaurants in Troy. It's been pretty plentiful. We had some mental health professionals open up just recently. So it's really a plethora of all different industries. As you know, Troy is such a great community because it has a little bit of everything. So we're seeing that same kind of reflection in business.
So Tara, with that, can I ask you, when we're talking about the businesses, and I think about the office buildings that are in Troy, and so many of these small businesses that really are center and based on those office buildings, how are they doing right now? Because we know a lot of places are only coming back like in a hybrid situation or a 50% capacity.
I think it varies. I think the pandemic has taught us all, we do have the ability to work from home in a lot of businesses. But what that does still create is some difficulties with culture. Keeping a company culture is very difficult with everyone in different directions. So we are seeing, yes, less people in the office buildings right now, but we are seeing the push to bring people back. And also it's from the employees as well, not as much as the employers. I still have a work from home policy, so we're all in the office, but we have some flexibility. And our newest employee, she's like, oh no, I'll be in every day. So you are still seeing the people are ready to get out of their houses and get back into the office. And it's a good flexible environment, but yeah, we are seeing some people come back. But I do think company culture is equally as important, so we are seeing a push for that for people to actually go back to the offices.
Tara Tomcsik-Husak with us here on the Megacast. She's the president and CEO for the Troy Chamber of Commerce. And when it comes to the actual chamber, because I feel like in all of the communities, the chambers have really been the glue that's held so many of these companies together throughout the pandemic. But as we start to hopefully emerge from the pandemic, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. How is that, do you think, going to impact the chamber? Have you seen more members come in and realize the value of what you have to offer?
So, it was very complicated. So when the pandemic hit, we saw members saying, well, I have to cut costs, so I can't renew membership or things of that nature. And that was understandable during those times. But then halfway through, they realized, I lost all the resources that I need. So then they all came back. So it was one of those things of like, even it was sometimes some of our members just took a month or two off and they're like, we made a mistake, we need to come back. And we've seen that transition. We've seen more members come. I think the reality is a lot of people don't really know what chambers do. And chambers currently are kind of the extension of any company. So we help connect people to more businesses. But in this situation, we changed. We're actually in the process of rewriting our vision and mission statement because we realized we started becoming the education angle. We started to, if you didn't know how to switch your business to go to an online format, it was my responsibility and my team's responsibility to help you get there. So we started increasing like how we can build people's marketing reach. We started working on what types of education do you need to help your business succeed. And I mean, we even help people fill out grant paperwork. So it's one of those things of a chamber is there to be an assistance to any of these businesses. And I think people finally saw that because nobody really realized how much help they needed until a pandemic hit. And now we're seeing all of these businesses who did reach out get a little more successes, see the wins that they really needed to move forward. So it's great for us because we can be a part of their success, and that our sole goal is the success of our businesses. So it's great to see that.
So with that too, you were mentioning that you're working on changing your mission statement just a little bit because it seems like you've had to evolve and pivot. I hate that word, throughout this pandemic, but also to make your organization stronger because you realize what really does work and what some of these businesses need, even outside of a pandemic.
Well, and I mean, a chamber's mission is always to connect, provide connectivity to businesses. And that's great, but there's more to it. Connectivity is not that, hey, let's meet at this location and catch up. Like, that does occur. We will never eliminate our networking because that is the bread and butter of what we do, but we realized we needed to do much more. And how we put that now into life and into vision and where we move forward is really going to be pivotal. I changed the word pivot for you because I, too, am so sick of that word. Right. But it is super important to showcase that we're more than that. And we have to be more than that for our members because our members need more. And that's on us.
And we look at some of the people, especially when it comes to the small businesses, more so like the mom and pops, and social media has really been so vital throughout this entire pandemic. And they don't know social media. They're not hiring a staff to get them through a pandemic by changing their social media or their websites up. So with that too, do you think that we're going to see an explosion, or at least these small businesses understand and keep up their social media platforms?
I think it's both. I also think it's the education around social media. One thing people don't know is, yes, you shouldn't post 7 times a day on one platform. And I think it's the training and the education of, hey, here's where the analytics work. Here is where you're going to showcase your business. I mean, we had one business who was targeting probably 50-year-old plus demographic, but they're like, so I got to learn TikTok and Snapchat right away. I'm like, no, stay in the Facebook world. So it's really kind of the understanding of what social media can do to help your business, but also understanding where you should be in that mix. And I think that's where it's been a little more helpful. And we've been sharing our members' news, so we keep saying, hey, tag us, like our Troy Chamber on Facebook, like us on Instagram, because then we share your information out, and they're like, oh, we didn't know you would share our stuff. But and you're like, no, we can do that. It's a button. But it's those pieces. It's really about the education of where you should be and how you're going to get your message out, because the business strength is really, it determines on which channels you utilize.
And along with that too, it's like what you were just talking about with tagging and how it works. And I was just explaining this to someone else. I was like, no, why are you doing this? Why don't you do A, B, C, D, and E? And you don't have to have a huge PR firm behind you. Sometimes it's just trying to educate yourself by...
I mean, the huge PR firms are a help. I will say, who knows when you can get them.
Exactly. And when you reach that level, good for your company as well.
Exactly.
So with that, Tara, going through the summer into the fall, anything big and exciting coming to the city of Troy?
We have a lot going on. So it's fun to have our events back in person. So we, one thing that we are doing, and it's going to be on August 12th, we are hosting a diversity summit. So this is actually prone towards businesses, and it's for HR professionals. It's really it's a workshop format. So it's not just a lecture. So we're gonna actually have all the employees would be able to come in, and we have 3 fantastic speakers speaking on all different topics, the diversity do's and don'ts, the diversity in leadership, what is the difference between equity and inclusion. We're going to actually have coursework for you to take back to your business to start your diversity and inclusion plan for your company. And it's actually great. So Beaumont is our presenting sponsor. So Beaumont actually covered the cost for all the member attendees. So it's an absolutely free event to come and get all of this education, which that would normally be almost like a college course to get all this information in one shop. So Beaumont is covering the cost for members. There is a small fee for non-members, but it should be a fantastic event because you truly can have transformation in your D&I plans in your own company, and it's completely free.
So when is that event? And you said it's going to be in person?
Yep, it's in person. It's actually at Embassy Suites in Troy, and it's the morning of August 12th. And it's a 2-hour session. You'll get to hear a bunch of different variety of topics, anything from legal advice, all of the above. But I'm excited because I believe, yes, you can talk all day, but what is the tangible things you can take with you? The worksheets that you can do to help your company move forward and the takeaways for that. So it's a very strong aspect of do the work. Here's the stuff, here's the guide. Now you can go and run with it instead of having to search on your own.
And what I love about this is, we can't discount being back in person because we know, especially at events such as this, it's the organic conversations that happen with the person next to you that can lead to those connections that then, take you on a different path or your business on a path. So I would imagine they just sign up through your chamber website.
You just go to troychamber.com, go to chamber events, and you will see our list of events. I mean, we have things on change management, which I'm sure we all need right now. We actually have an amazing panelist of speakers that's going to be our crisis communication panel of how do you deal with crisis communication in your company. We've got our golf outing coming up. We're actually going to be launching a Troy tailgate party, so that'll be a more fun, whimsical event. That'll be in September. And yeah, it's just a lot going on. We have our nonprofit conference we're getting scheduled and ready for. It's a lot of work and a lot of fun, and it's just really exciting to see.
How do you navigate that behind the scenes, juggling all these topics? And it's one thing to throw out a possibility in a brainstorm session and then actually seeing it being implemented.
I will say I am probably the luckiest person on the planet because I have by far the best team on the planet. We had Sheila, Jody, and Rebecca are spectacular in every way. So it's really the fact that we listen to what our members want and what our members need. So as we're listening, we actually get this feedback, and that's how we construct all the events that we do. But from orchestrating it on the back end, we're busy. We're swamped busy. I mean, in addition to all those events, the Troy mayor and myself, we're actually launching a Focus Troy business tour where we're going to showcase some of the local businesses in Troy, and working with Mayor Ethan Baker is just absolutely wonderful. So it's nonstop. We don't sleep. This is a lot of coffee. It's probably my 4th cup. So if I'm talking fast, it's because that's my life. We got to do it.
I know. I just discovered that my Keurig does iced coffee.
Ooh.
I was like, oh, this is nice.
I'm in.
Right? So with that, Tara, I have one last question. This is a very important question. Is from Larry. Is that hotel or apartments going up behind the Shake Shack on Big Beaver?
On Big Beaver, that is apartments. They are luxury apartments, and they are absolutely stunning. So I do believe they're starting to move in some of their first residents in September. But everyone should go check that place out. It's gorgeous. We actually have several new luxury apartments being built out there.
Wow. See, Troy things are not stopping in the city of Troy.
Never is.
Well, Tara, it's always great having you, and it's nice to have a conversation where we can talk about going forward rather than surviving.
Exactly.
Well, thank you again, Tara Tomcsik-Husak. She's the president and CEO for the Troy Chamber of Commerce. Again, the Diversity and Inclusion Summit 2021 is going to be happening August the 12th, 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. at the Embassy Suites Troy. You can get more information by going on their website. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the 11 o'clock hour of the show, including when we come back, we'll be speaking with the doctor of epidemiologist. He's a professor at Michigan State University right after this break. But as a reminder, you're listening to 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking. Here's one more reason to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your shot to win. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Thank you for taking time to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside the one, the only Mr. Tyler Keefe. It is a Monday after a stormy weekend, but the sun is shining.
Yeah, sun's shining outside. It's going to be a very hot day today, too. So, take your breaks if you're outside.
I will say, this summer feels so different than last summer. I was able to get out and get on the water yesterday, enjoy the lakes that are around us, but we're not out of the pandemic. And sometimes I feel like, especially here in Oakland County, we kind of feel like we're in a little bit of a bubble. But we're not. I mean, this virus is still very real, and so many people still are not getting vaccinated. To talk more, let's bring in Dr. Nigel Paneth. He is a professor of epidemiologist and biostatistics and pediatrics over at Michigan State University. Doctor, great to have you with us. How are you today?
Great to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
So I'm hoping that you are waking up indeed with electricity and power at your home.
Well, I'm actually not in Michigan at the moment, so we've had no difficulties. I'm in the state of Vermont.
Oh, well, good. So you guys didn't have the storms that we had over the weekend.
No, we didn't. Perhaps they'll hit us later.
Well, let's hope that when you return to your home, but it does look like the Lansing area was spared. It was more Genesee County and northern Oakland County, that everything is good at your home. Doctor, if I can talk to you, because can you just give us an overall feeling as someone with your medical background and your training, where we stand in this pandemic?
Well, we've made great strides, clearly. We've vaccinated about half the U.S. population, but it's by no means over, unfortunately. I wish it were the case, but because we still have a substantial fraction of the population unvaccinated, it's going to be hard for us to bring this to a close. It will, as long as there are unvaccinated people, then you still have the potential for epidemic spread. And that's the sadness, is we now have a great tool, an effective vaccine, and yet not everybody's picking up on it. Michigan's a shade ahead of the nation. We have about 53% of the population vaccinated. Nationally, it's closer to 50%. Oakland County, I just looked at the data, we're over 60%. So we're getting there, but we're not out of the woods yet, and we won't be out of the woods until we have a very high fraction of the population vaccinated.
So as someone who studies this, what is that magic number to try to stop this, that we can get back to life as normal and not have COVID-19 be in the headlines every day?
Well, it's difficult to give one number because every virus probably has a different threshold. This is, especially the Delta variant, is very communicable. And as the communicability increases, the so-called herd immunity, the fraction of the population that has to be immune to keep things, epidemic spread suppressed, gets higher. So I think most of us would be happy if 80% of the population were vaccinated. Remember, children not yet being vaccinated, small children under 12. So they represent a potential pool. They're not likely so far they get sick rarely, but they can still transmit to people who can get sick. So I'm hoping the development of the approval of a child vaccine, which I anticipate will happen in the next few months, will help a lot. But there are a lot of people quite eligible, and all they have to do is get a shot. That's it. And it's not just about yourself, when you get a shot. It's about the whole community, because you protect yourself, yes, from severe disease, no question, but you also protect people who are more vulnerable than you are. That aunt of yours who's on cancer chemotherapy, that cousin who's had a kidney transplant, these are people who don't form antibodies very well. And anyone walking around unvaccinated today in an area where there's a substantial amount of transmission is just a walking time bomb for somebody else, for somebody other than themselves. So if you don't want to get vaccinated for yourself, maybe do it for your friends and relatives and people you may not even know who are more vulnerable than yourself. Try to prevent transmission.
Doctor, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I feel like if we would have had someone such as yourself as part of the PR campaign from day one, we'd have a lot higher vaccination rate than what we have right now, because you just explained it so beautifully. Well,
thank you very much. I have to say I'm old enough to be part of a generation that recognized vaccines and what they did. I mean, when I was a child, there were kids on iron lungs from polio. And you did not want to have your child on an iron lung with polio. And I've seen measles put a child into permanent coma. I've seen whooping cough cause a stroke in a 9-month-old. I mean, I've seen these things. And I was in New York when 2 kids died of diphtheria, not in my hospital, but in another hospital. And, these things burn into you, and you say it's so simple to prevent them. When I was in the 60s, as recently as the 60s, the 70s, you could not come to the United States without a yellow card that showed you'd been vaccinated against smallpox. And it was understood. We were not going to let smallpox into this country. And in 1978, smallpox was eradicated through vaccination. Eradicated completely. This is a disease that killed 1 million people a year, as recently as the 1950s in the world. Eradicated completely. We haven't had a case since 1978, 40 plus years. And I don't understand people who don't get that, Where's the smallpox? Where's the polio? Where are the iron lungs? They're gone. They're gone because of vaccination. And people are saying, this has been rushed out. Let me tell you, I've studied the 1954 polio campaign, vaccine study which was done, by the way, the big study was run out of Michigan, run out of Ann Arbor. The University of Michigan Department of Epidemiology ran that famous study, 1 million school children. That study was done just as rapidly as the studies we're doing now. The polio vaccine was being used with no more evidence than we have now for the COVID vaccine. In fact, the polio vaccine trial showed it to be less effective than the COVID vaccines are now. COVID vaccines are 90 to 95% effective. The polio trial showed the vaccine to be 80% effective. and we just forget the lessons of history. So, if you forget the lessons of history, you repeat history, unfortunately.
Dr. Nigel Paneth with us here on the Megacast. He's a professor of epidemiology and biostatistics and pediatrics out of the Michigan State University. And doctor, what is it going to take? Because as you mentioned, to travel into the U.S., you had to have a vaccination card. I went to Africa a few years ago. We had to have numerous shots, and we didn't think anything about it. It was like, in order to travel, these are the shots and the vaccines that you need to get to be able to get on that plane. So what is it going to take for us to get today's society there?
I wish I knew the answer to that. That's a question beyond medicine, beyond epidemiology. It has to do with the way people think, the way people believe. I really do think that the success of vaccines have blinded us to the success of vaccines. It's because we eradicated those diseases. My parents, probably your parents too, grew up with the idea that children were vulnerable to diphtheria, to whooping cough, to polio, to many other vaccine-preventable diseases. Measles, severe measles. Measles killed 500 kids a year in the U.S. before we used the vaccine. Caused 500,000 cases a year. It was, people forget how severe these things were. And since we don't see them, we kind of say, oh, well, we don't need to worry about them. But of course, the reason we don't see them is because we're vaccinated. And the tragedy is that people don't seem to understand that. And I really honestly, I've asked myself the same question that you just asked me. What will it take to get people to understand how valuable this measure is in general and specifically for COVID? And I don't have an answer. I think you have to ask the people who are not getting vaccines, what would convince them to get vaccinated?
If I can ask you, Doctor, as someone who studies this, did you anticipate that we could be exposed to a pandemic such as the one that we're experiencing now? Not necessarily COVID-19, but as an epidemiologist, did you foresee this in our future?
Well, epidemiologists have been thinking about the possibility of a new bad epidemic for a long time. We particularly worried about influenza. We remembered the 1918, 1919, 1920 influenza, which killed, the general estimate is 50 million people around the world. And it killed a lot of young people, unlike COVID. It was especially focused on young people who got it. And we've been kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop, the next big flu pandemic. It hasn't happened. We had examples of it, H1N1 and the various other. We got SARS. SARS was a wake-up call, It went through Canada. We didn't get much of it in the U.S. Went through some of the Far Eastern countries. We're always kind of on the edge. We don't monitor as tightly as we used to our borders for incoming infections. You couldn't come into the United States as an immigrant without a chest X-ray that was free of tuberculosis. You couldn't come in without a vaccine card against smallpox. We had 55 quarantine stations in the United States in the 1970s. Those were, we kind of shrugged our shoulders. We felt we didn't need them. They've been removed. We don't have those anymore. So we've become a bit, frankly, lax, and we've let our public health infrastructure deteriorate, and we haven't invested in this. And that's a very sad thing.
Dr. Nigel Paneth with us here on the Megacast. He's the professor of epidemiologist, biostatistics. I have only had one cup of coffee today.
I know.
And pediatrics over at the Michigan State University. And with that, I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the treatments for people that are exposed to COVID. Can you explain more about that?
Well, we don't have any single magic bullet for COVID. We've learned a lot of last year about the right way to treat very ill people. I think one thing that doesn't get emphasized as much as we might be able to emphasize it is the use of what are called passive antibody products. The best known of those is the monoclonal antibodies. Those are licensed for outpatient use. They're very effective. They prevent people from getting severely ill once they're infected. Similarly, convalescent plasma, which is not yet authorized for outpatient use, I wish it was, unfortunately, it's not, probably should be given to anybody who's not desperately ill when they come into the hospital, because it really can prevent progression to severe disease. This has been demonstrated in a very good randomized trial in Argentina, and convalescent plasma and monoclonal antibodies can reduce the likelihood that if you're sick with this disease, you will progress to being on a ventilator or being in the ICU. So I think and it's very important that those be done in the early stages of the illness, not late. Late in the illness, they're not going to help you at all.
So when we say early stages, can you give us a timeline? Because we do know what the incubation period is, 7 to 14 days. So by the time someone tests positive, is it that day they should start their treatment?
I would count from the days of illness. Once a person is ill, I would say it's ideal to get monoclonals into them in the first 3 days, 4 days. If they're very, and who would you use it? You use it particularly, these treatments, in people who are at risk of becoming severely ill by dint of age, by dint of underlying conditions and things like that. And then I think, but if someone's severely ill enough to be admitted to hospital, then I think it's very useful to give convalescent plasma, because I think the bulk of the evidence suggests that treatment of people early in the course of illness with convalescent plasma is helpful. And unfortunately, we've had some trials done in people who are very sick, very advanced disease, and it's not helpful then. And as a result, some people think it's not useful at all. It's just useful in the early stages of disease.
So is this something a patient would have to ask their doctors for, or should it just be administered immediately?
Well, it might be of value to remind people the use of convalescent plasma peaked in the U.S. in the last fall, and it's dropped off quite a bit since. And so doctors may need to be reminded about this, and of course monoclonal antibodies. Now, both of these require intravenous therapy, so it's not like a drug off the shelf that you pop in your mouth. So it's a little more complicated, but I still think it's really ideal to have, even if you can't reduce the burden of infection, perhaps you can reduce the burden of progression to severe illness and not have the consequence of being in ICU, being on a ventilator, and dying.
So I know that, the convalescent plasma was talked about a lot back in the beginning stages, well before the vaccine. And then it's like you said, that conversation has waned off quite a bit. Do you think that's also impacted the amount of people donating their plasma?
Yeah, we've been, you may not know this, but I've been involved in the National Convalescent Plasma Project, COVID-19 Convalescent Plasma Project, and we have been first studying and ultimately beginning to advocate for convalescent plasma use early. And there was a drop-off in use in November, December last year when 1 or 2 trials came out that showed it wasn't reducing the death rate, but those trials were conducted in people with very advanced disease, when we don't think that's the right time to do it. So it was kind of the wrong experiment. The trials that started early showed much better results, and so we think it's a useful thing. It's very safe. There are very few side effects from convalescent plasma, and if it were available, I would recommend where authorized for outpatient use, I'd recommend it, but it's not yet FDA authorized for outpatient use, only inpatient use. So I would urge people to get, if they're admitted to hospital, to tell their doctor, would you please consider convalescent plasma for, as soon as possible. If the doctor doesn't know about it, I'd refer them to our website, ccpp19.org, ccpp19.org, which is pretty comprehensive in its treatment of what the evidence is for convalescent plasma. All the trials are there. All the information any physician would need to think about treating with convalescent plasma.
So, Doctor, just another minute or two here with you on the Megacast. So, if we can, what is the time frame, and who can donate their plasma for it to be utilized? Do they have to be infected with COVID-19?
Yeah, the idea is you are taking a product that contains antibodies to COVID-19, so it has to come from someone who has been infected with it. There are conversations now about whether vaccinated people might be a source of convalescent plasma. That hasn't been resolved. So right now, we're using people who are sick with it. And it's ideal to have the level of antibody tested because people vary in how much antibody they produce, and you want to use high titer antibody product. And in fact, the FDA has actually given a threshold above which, you should use the antibody, the plasma antibody level is going to be effective. So I hope blood banks are all into this. We've had many conversations. We're in touch with the AABB, the American Association of Blood Banks, and many other good organizations, Red Cross, Vitalant, many of the providers of plasma, and they are ready for people to give donations, and they can. There's even actually I'm pretty convinced there's a backlog of available convalescent plasma in the United States that can be used.
Again, we're talking with Dr. Nigel Paneth here on the Megacast. He is a distinguished, it's one of those days for me, it's Monday, professor, epidemiologist in biostatistics and pediatrics over at Michigan State University. Doctor, it's always great talking to you. Thank you so much for your insight and your knowledge. I learned so much in our conversation, and I have to say we've been talking about this for more than a year, and you've offered new insights, so we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Again, you can get more information if you go to ccppla.org if you are interested in donating plasma to help some of the individuals that are suffering from COVID-19. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about construction, our favorite topic here on the Megacast.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Thank you for being with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. It's Monday. I can't talk.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I can't think. You know what it is I have 20 other things going on instead of sitting here focusing on the show.
Yeah, I feel that too. It's you asked me a simple question during one of our breaks about, I see Larry's doing the Zoom producing and the booking today, and I sat here confused for a solid 15 seconds looking at you like you're a crazy person before I, recrossed my wires to be correctly and got it there. So we there's a case of the Mondays going around today.
I will say, you know what else is confusing?
The roads. Oh man, tell me about it. 4-way stops. It's pretty simple. You'd think.
It's been a crazy, we've had crazy weather.
Sure.
With the summer, but I also wonder, how does that impact all the road construction that is going on? Because you cannot drive pretty much anywhere without coming across some type of orange barrel.
Yeah, we have 5 seasons here in the state of Michigan. We have autumn, winter, spring, summer, and construction season, and construction season kind of spreads across all 4 of the others. So it's a tough time.
So with that, let's bring in Craig Bryson, our good friend over at the Oakland County Road Commission, the Senior Communications Manager. Do people love you or do people hate you?
It depends on who you're talking to and which road they live along.
Right? Because I always think, like, these poor road construction people, because everyone gets so frustrated. Well, it's not their fault.
Right. We get frustrated, too. We have to drive in it as well.
See? You know what? I think that right there should be your PR campaign. We have to drive through construction, too, because every time you would go up to that sign, I would kind of chuckle and be like, okay, yeah, they do.
Yep.
Hello, who is it? We're in the middle of an interview. Hey, Craig, if I can ask you, because of all this weather we've been having and all of the rain, does that set you and your team behind on some of the construction that you're doing?
It does. It certainly does on a number of levels. Asphalt can't be put down when the soil is too wet or when the material is too wet. In some places the ground has been so saturated that the crews have not been able to work. And of course, just having the equipment out in torrential downpour doesn't work well. So it's the weather's been very challenging this year.
It has been, but with that as well, I have to ask, because there are so many times that you go through a construction site and it's like the weekend and the lane is still down to 1 lane, but yet no one's there working. Why is that?
And again, that depends on the project.
You get that again all the time, don't you?
I do. And I see the same thing and sometimes scratch my head as well. But a lot of times for the major projects, it's more than just a couple barrels out there. And it can be a couple of things. Number one, it can be that there's so many barrels that it would take an entire day to take them down and set them back up, and that loses precious construction time. Or 2, it can be that they put down new concrete, and the concrete takes a week to 10 days sometimes to cure, depending on the concrete and the temperatures, that kind of thing. So they'll put the concrete down. They have to just get out of the way and let it cure. And it looks like nothing is happening, but you cannot use that concrete until it is fully cured and reaches strength. So that's part of the issue as well.
What is that time frame like?
Well, it really varies. They have different types of concrete. There are certain types of concrete we can use in an emergency situation that cures much faster. But we prefer to use, the more longer lasting concrete that does take longer. But it depends on the temperatures outside. It depends on the humidity rates. And we just have to test the concrete to see if it's what they call reach strength. And our testing division has technology that allows them to do that, so they can go out and test it and say, okay, now it has reach strength. We can drive on it. They can open the lanes up. They can't open the lanes until they're properly striped, because we don't want people driving on a brand new section of concrete and not knowing where the lanes are and getting in crashes because there are no lane markings there.
Well, we're doing that in wintertime all the time.
Unfortunately, we are sometimes forced to do that. That's true.
So, Craig, though, I do sometimes, and again, we have this conversation like with friends all the time. It's like we can send billionaires into space, but we cannot figure out how to come up with some type of product that doesn't have to be replaced every few years that we drive on, because road construction is such a nightmare.
Well, we do know how to do that. We have the knowledge. The problem is the money. Apparently this country is willing, or the private industry is willing, to invest billions in going to space and not so much willing to invest taxpayer dollars in the roads. We know exactly how to build a road that would last a lot longer. It has to do with the depth of the concrete, the depth of the base, the drainage structures, but it's very expensive. So oftentimes we're forced to, make compromises to build roads that we can afford to build. And it comes down to us as taxpayers and what we're willing, and what our representatives in the state and federal legislatures are willing to spend on our behalf. And that's a challenge we face all the time. It's a discussion we have with our legislators all the time, that this should be a priority. Our roads are critical to everything we do in this country, whether it's industry, commerce, quality of life, school, you name it. We can't do it without good roads, and yet we in this country, do not invest in our roads like many other countries do. And what you see is the result of that investment level.
So we keep putting a Band-Aid on it. Are you hopeful, though, with all this federal stimulus money coming to the state of Michigan? Is it going to help us fund some of these projects, or are you just getting a little piece of the pie?
Well, we hope we get some. So far, we haven't gotten any because we're not a direct recipient of it. The legislature, there's a bill in Lansing right now that would direct some of that money to us, and that would be great. But it's got to go through the state legislature and be signed by the governor. We're also talking to Oakland County. The county is a direct recipient. We're a separate unit of government. We're not a direct recipient. The county could channel a little bit of their money towards us, and we're kind of hoping they'll do that as well. In the meantime, there's, at the federal level, there's discussion of a new infrastructure package, as I'm sure you're aware, and we're hoping that goes somewhere. But every couple of years, there's a discussion of a big infrastructure package in Washington, and sadly, many times it doesn't go anywhere, or doesn't turn out to be nearly what was originally discussed.
So with that, Craig, if you can kind of explain to us, I know we've had this discussion before, but for people when we come across these road projects, a lot of times it's hard to determine which ones are state, local, and county. And then is federal on top of that as well?
Well, there is no such thing as a federal road. There's federal road funding that goes to all levels of roads, but the feds don't actually own any roads except in national parks or national forests. Other than that, all the roads you see are either state, local, or county. But it is very difficult. The state roads are all the IM or US routes. So, M24, I-75, I-696, US 24. Those are all state roads. Woodward, which is M1, Telegraph, which is US 24.
What about the mile roads? 10 mile, 9 mile?
It gets confusing. Essentially, we have, in most cases, virtually every other mile road, 8, 10, 12, 14, and the local communities have the ones in between in the cities and villages. Now, there's also 21 townships in Oakland County, and townships by state law do not have jurisdiction over any roads. So those mile roads in the townships fall under the Road Commission's jurisdiction.
Okay, who came up with this formula?
The state legislature many years ago.
Well, that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, because it does get really confusing for so many people.
Absolutely.
And this is why. So with that, if we can talk about some of the road closures here in Oakland County, I will say I just don't get the Orchard Lake one that reroutes me. I can get through coming to work right there by Orchard Lake St. Mary's.
Right.
But going home, you have to go all the way around. It's about a 5-mile detour.
Yes.
What exactly are they doing?
That is a guardrail replacement project. The guardrails along the road, I apologize.
That's okay. You're an important person. We know.
The guardrails along the road are deteriorating, and the road shoulder there is deteriorating. So we have to go in and replace much of the guardrail along there. The good news is it shouldn't be too much longer till it's done, probably another week to 2, and they'll be done and out of there. But it is a convenience, and we were able to keep it open in one direction, but it doesn't help you at all when you're going the other direction. So.
Especially when your smart car is not charged.
Uh-oh.
Yes, that can be frustrating, I'm sure.
I was like, am I going to make it home last week? What are the other big ones? I know that you guys didn't have anything to do with 75 because that's a state road, but does that impact the county at all?
Well, it does. Both the big construction project that's going on there and the tanker fire we had 2 weeks ago now, both of those direct a bunch more traffic onto county roads, so our roads are carrying a lot more traffic. The good news is the traffic signals on our roads are almost all smart signals that automatically adjust the timing of the signals to accommodate whatever traffic's there. So when you dump a lot more traffic onto the parallel roads, such as when we have the tanker fire, our traffic signals automatically give a lot more green to that parallel traffic. But by the same token, when you reach a saturation level, all the green light in the world is not going to help if your road is over capacity at that time. So it certainly is making things more congested, and with construction project that'll continue to be the case till the project is done. that's the biggest impact on us of the I-75 work.
Again, Craig Bryson with us here on the Megacast. He's the Senior Communications Manager for the Oakland County Road Commission. And Craig, you just mentioned about the smart traffic lights. When it comes to technology in the world of road construction, how do you research what is going on and know what to implement, and can it be implemented? Because I would think that there's new technology out there for you to, take advantage of.
That's a great question, and that's something that we're extremely interested in. For the last 30 years, we've been one of the leading local road agencies in the nation when it comes to technology. We work closely with the Federal Highway Administration, which is almost unheard of for a county-level road agency. We work closely with the auto industry, which fortunately is in our backyard here, to coordinate for the coming fully smart vehicles. But we are very involved in state organizations, national organizations, the Transportation Research Board, which is the academic branch of federal government that leads tremendous amounts of research. We're very involved in there. We lead a number of TRB, committees. Our engineers are very connected to engineers around the country that are involved in this kind of thing, and locally to the auto industry, both the supplier and the original manufacturers, the big three, Toyota as well, Nissan. We've done numerous test projects to test some of the new communications between the vehicle and the infrastructure. We're really on the cutting edge of that kind of stuff. That's one aspect. I mean, there's also a lot of new technology in the construction side. We have our contractors are now using GPS paving machines. It used to be you'd have to run a string line down the side of the road that would guide the paving machine, and some of them still do that. Now it's GPS. They set the coordinates, and the machine drives itself along that line, gets a perfectly aligned pavement. So I mean, there's new technology in all aspects of this industry, and it's really a fascinating thing.
I've always wondered how they get their line so straight, because every once in a while you'll see where there's like a little curve, but for the most part they are very straight.
They are, and hopefully there'll be fewer of those curves with less of the string line guidance these days.
So with that, Craig, we know that so much of your funding comes from the gas tax. What is the conversation right now as the push is on for more electric vehicles?
Right, that's a great question too, and we've been in that discussion for years as well. Most of the legislators that we talk to acknowledge that something has got to change. They did in 2015 when they enacted the most recent state road funding package. They did increase the annual fee for electric and hybrid vehicles to help pay for the roads they drive on. But there's got to be more. I think eventually what you'll see, and this is kind of the national movement now, is something called MBUF, or mileage-based user fees, where you actually pay a fee per mile driven rather than a tax per gallon of fuel you purchase. So regardless of what kind of engine you have in your vehicle, what's driving your vehicle, you're paying for the mile you use the roads, which is really about the fairest way to do it, I think, and probably what's coming, maybe not for another 10 years, but I think you'll see a lot of discussion on the national level in coming years about that and the technology is there to do it today, so it could be easily done.
Craig Bryson with us here on the Megacast. He's the Senior Communications Manager for the Road Commission for Oakland County. And I was thinking today as I was driving along that stretch of Orchard Lake Road with all the road construction, I don't even want to call them barrels, because now you have the new barrels that are little skinny ones. It's
right.
like road construction barrels have gone on a diet. What is the budget for road construction barrels? Because it seems like everywhere you go in Michigan, you see orange everywhere. Like you can't get from here to a grocery store without hitting some type of road construction. So what's your budget, and how many of these come up missing every year? Not that I have one in my garage for Halloween. I don't know where
I was going to say, we've seen on social media platforms many people dressing up as road construction icons in road barrels. But actually, believe it or not, we don't buy many barrels. We require our contractors to provide the barrels, so it's part of their operating costs for us. So we don't have a line item for orange barrels, believe it or not. But I can guarantee you there are a lot of orange barrels purchased out there.
I mean, they do make great for memes, right? Like all the road construction. The fact that there's even an emoji for road construction, it immediately comes up with the little emoji for you if you put road construction.
Absolutely, and we've abused the iconic barrel many times in our own social media and communications efforts.
Craig Bryson with us here on the Megacast. Craig, just another minute or two with you. Anything, and maybe I didn't ask you because I'm just rambling here this morning, that you want to add?
Well, there is a real interesting potential project coming up, or it's going to be a project. What it looks like is the potential part in your area. Orchard Lake Road from Middle Belt Road to Commerce Road. We are looking at the possibility of reconfiguring that road. It's a 4-lane road right now, 2 lanes in either direction, no center left turn lane. We've got a lot of rear end collisions there because there is no turn lane and people stop in the through lane. So we're looking at potentially changing that to what we call an unbalanced 4-lane road, where there'll be a center turn lane, two lanes in one direction and 1 lane in the other direction, which is a much safer format. We've surveyed the community to see what the public thinks about that. We're talking to the local communities along that road right now. But that's going to be built one way or another in 2023, and that's kind of an interesting and exciting opportunity, something we've never done before. So something to watch for in the future.
So that's the one that we did the survey on, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because I did go back and change my, my survey after we talked to you the last time. But once again, you're like, oh, the first time. So we get to be the guinea pigs, is what you're saying.
Yes, there are some in other places. Just we have not done them. Wayne County has done them. There is actually a small section of unbalanced road in the city of Pontiac as well. So they're around, just not on road commission roads in Oakland County.
So is this something that could also be switched depending on the traffic? I think I've seen that like way out in Brighton or somewhere, and I always get confused.
Right. No, this would not switch. This would be permanently striped. But I know what you're talking about. There have been cases where they do move based on the traffic flow, yes. This is not one of those.
Okay. So regular people like me can handle it.
And me.
I'll be able to navigate it. It's like that section of Troy. Sure. I'm like, every time I go through that intersection, I'm like, I can't. I don't know. I take the other roadway. Craig Bryson with us, Senior Communications Manager, Road Commission for Oakland County. Craig, great to have you with us. I know the last time we talked, still hiring, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So anyone out there looking for a job, please go on the Road Commission's website. They would love to have some great people join their team. With that, we'll take a break here on the Megacast. Just about 20 minutes left here in the show. When we come back, who's next? Oh, the Chaldean Cultural Center. That's next here on the Megacast.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is. Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sofia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Great to have you with us on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. We want to just let you know you can always catch various previous episodes of the Megacast. Just go to civiccentertv.com, click on the Megacast tab there. You'll find the full episodes of the shows going all the way back to when they first developed the show in March 2020, or if you just click on the on-demand section, there you will also find the individual interviews. Just about 15-20 minutes left here in the Monday edition of the Megacast, and we want to go ahead and round out the show bringing in the executive director for the Chaldean Cultural Center, Waim Namu. Great to have you with us. How are you today?
Good. Hi. Thanks for having me again.
Tell us more for those that maybe aren't familiar with the Chaldean Cultural Center. What do you guys do over there, and where is it located?
Well, it's located in West Bloomfield, and we have the world's first and only Chaldean museum. And Chaldeans are an indigenous people of Iraq. They're Neo-Babylonians and a minority Christian in that region. And since about 2015, Michigan has become our home because now it has the largest population of Chaldeans in the world. We used to be the second largest population, second to Iraq, but now we are the largest population here.
How does that happen? How did we become the Mecca for Chaldeans?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it started off slowly. The Chaldeans originally came because there was a community of Lebanese and Syrians that lived here that spoke the Arabic language. And so they felt that there was a sense of community. There was also the Henry Ford's $5 a day opportunity. And so they felt like this was the right place for them to come and connect and to establish their community. And they did that. And so it was the Lebanese and Syrians that originally helped the Chaldeans establish themselves and get their act together. And then once the Chaldeans were in a stronger place, they were able to bring their families here.
It really is fascinating, but I feel like the Chaldean community has really been a vital part of the economic engine for the state of Michigan.
Yes, and part of the reason is I love when I give tours at the museum, which I hope to give you a tour one day when you come. I love to show that from ancient times that we have had relationship with money, that it's not just about, just kind of embracing the American dream and understanding its value, but this since ancient times, the Babylonians were known to create, and they invented the shekel. And so we have a good relationship with money and hard work. And even faith. It was from ancient times where you will find a lot of the statues where the families are standing together like this in prayer form. And that's just because this is before even any kind of religion was formed, the kind that we have today, the various religions we have today. They would work very hard, and they credited the gods for their work. They didn't take credit for themselves, but they were able to invent many things, including the shekel. And The Secret, I don't know if you've read the book, in The Secret, they mention early on about, look at how the Babylonians did it, because this was their success story. And unfortunately, that people and that culture was destroyed in that region, and now I guess it lives on here in Michigan.
Well, and it is a very tight-knit community, the Chaldean community. It is about family, and it's really a beautiful thing, and so much that we can all learn from that. And if I can ask you, because I know you guys have a new project over there at the Cultural Center, the Digital Storytelling Project. You have a background in communications. You're very savvy with communications. Were you the driving force behind this project? How did it come about?
Yes, I do have to take credit for it, only because I am a storyteller. I've written 14 books. I'm involved in film, and I understand the power of storytelling, not just on a sense of self-expression, but it's also on the power of healing. I myself, because of the trauma of being born in Iraq, and even though I left when I was a child, but there's ancestral trauma that you kind of bring along with you, that I was fortunate enough that I found many people here in the United States who helped me through it. And then I found that really through story that you can transform your life. And part of where we came from, the region where we came from, was very oppressive. And you were too scared to just even identify yourself. And today it's even worse, where you are, you have to put your identity, your religion, and that could cost you your life. So I guess we had it easier even during that time, because we left in 1980. And so I saw some of the things that had happened there that were very, like they affected who I am today, and especially as a writer trying to express herself, and as a woman as well. And so when all the things were happening, which I noticed that we talked about a year ago, 11 months ago, and this was during COVID, and we were trying to see like how to continue working. There was so many foundations that were incredibly helpful in trying to keep arts and culture alive. And so we were looking at what would be something that would be beneficial for people, for communities. And I found the digital storytelling, that it was something that not only I was interested in before, but I also did a lot of studies and found that other organizations, including like Native Americans, Hispanics, and other communities had used it, and that it was effective. And some used it in different ways, whether it was for cultural purposes or people with cancer, that groups with cancer that used it for healing purposes. And for us, what we do is, and this is really thanks to the generous donation of the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan, and more recently, Michigan Humanities, which is going to allow us to translate and subtitle these videos. And so we interview people. We are starting with the elderly, because they're really the more vulnerable community, especially with COVID. And they speak in their Aramaic language, which is, we don't know that we could actually preserve this language, but at least we can document it for the new generation to listen to, if nothing else. And in the Aramaic language, they share their experience, where they were born, what were their childhood experiences, what things they witnessed, what was their experience coming to the United States, and what was their experience with COVID. And the interviews are fairly the same, like 30 minutes. And then we're doing 30 participants this year, and we're gonna, like I said, translate and subtitle the videos. And we're very excited about this project, because every home I enter, when you hear their stories, and you can tell, people in their 90s, that's what they want to leave, and they understand the power of that. And they not only want to express themselves, but they want their grandkids and their great-grandkids and the new generation to recognize and remember them, and know what it was like in Iraq.
It really is a beautiful legacy that they're leaving behind, and it's a lesson in life that we can all learn from as well. And in doing these interviews, what have you learned from speaking with some of the individuals?
I have learned that, and this was the case for my mom too, that they had the kind of wisdom that you don't need to know how to read and write to have it. They just have so much common sense, so much heart, so much discipline, so much understanding, and so much kindness. And they were always like giving, again, just like the ancients did, credit to God. Well, thank God that God brought us here. God was generous to us by, I was almost gonna die, and he saved our lives. And just that language. And so like, I'll be maybe running around and trying to get my kids, taking care of this thing, and then my dog. And by the time I get out of the house, and by the time I sit with them, I'm transported into another world where life was simpler, and they just handed things over to their faith and just really worked hard. And their messages were so simple, but it worked. And I just love that. I always walk away feeling calmer and more peaceful. I feel like I've gone through like a meditative type of experience.
William Namu with us here on the Megacast. She's the Executive Director for the Chaldean Cultural Center. And can I ask, do you have any other projects going on over at the Cultural Center people should check out?
Well, another thing that we're very excited about, that this happened also due to COVID, and I think like COVID was there was a lot of negativities that was associated with that, but we also opened up globally. A lot of people were able, and organizations, including ourselves, where we started what's called a virtual discussion series. And this was through the kindness of University of Michigan Detroit Center, where they trained us to do online programming and interviews, such as the one that we're doing right now. And the next thing you know, we're interviewing somebody every week, that is from different parts of the world. This is like the director of the Baghdad Museum, somebody in Australia, Cambridge University, the professor who's documenting Aramaic language for the past 30 years. I mean, England, filmmakers in England, in Washington, Jewish Iraqis who have that kind of history. It's been amazing, the kind of people that we've had the chance to connect with. And that was, again, thanks to U of M training us. And then we collaborated with Unique Voices in Films, a nonprofit organization, and CMN TV, who replays these videos after they air live.
That is one of the beautiful things coming out of COVID is it has allowed for us to reach people in other faraway places that maybe we would not have been able to have access to one another without this pandemic. And with that, Waim, can I ask you, the Cultural Center, is it open to the public right now?
Yeah, it's through reservation, just because we still like to keep it where, you know, not too many. Like I have a group of seniors that have come visit us today. They were brought by the Chaldean Ladies of Charity. And it's just so exciting because they're like seeing part of their heritage while they're here. And all they have to do is just make a reservation. It's just, you know, that's all we ask.
We'd
be happy to accommodate.
Is there a cost with visiting the center?
Yeah, it's like for groups, it's $5 a person, and for just individuals, it's like $10 a person, and $5 for kids.
That really, though, is nothing. And like you said, it's the first and only such center in the entire world, and it's so important for us to maintain it. But it's right here in our backyard. It's literally down the street.
And it's not just about, sometimes people think that Chaldeans is like a different, it's a community and it kind of belongs within itself, and they don't really see the connection between that and the rest of the world. But this is where the cradle of civilization was formed. We're writing, and a lot of the things, city-states were formed. So when you come here, you connect to your own history, your Western history, through the ancients of Iraq.
What is your website if people want to find out more information? And did you put some of those digital interviews up on your website as well?
Yes, we have an archive of the digital interviews, and like they're all wonderful people from all over the world, as I mentioned, that we get to learn about. So it's not just, you end up finding all these people that were ancients from Iraq, even though whether they're living there or different parts in the world. But they can just visit ChaldeanCulturalCenter.org. And Chaldean is it starts with a CH, Chaldean Cultural Center.
And I will say, in your own right, you're a fascinating individual as well. And they're so lucky to have you over there as the executive director.
Thank you. And again, thank you for having me and being interested in what we're doing nowadays. I really appreciate it.
It is doing this show for the past year, I have a huge list of all the places to visit and things to do. And you're on my list.
And I will give you a personal tour. So make sure that you let them know who you are when you're making the reservation, and I'll be here.
Well, thank you so much. I would love that. I'd be honored. And we should note that because we are in such a huge Chaldean community here in the West Bloomfield area, take time to learn more about the people that live next door to us. It's been such a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
That is just about a minute left here in the show. It seems like everything's going okay, Tyler. Everything's back online?
Yeah, seems to be all fine now and all clear and back and normal. So we've had a good show despite the earlier issues. We overcame it, and here we are.
So with that, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today's edition of the Megacast. We will be back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. bright and early. We want to remind anyone out there, we are always looking to highlight and feature new people. So if you would like to be on the show, you can do so. Just reach out to us. Go to civiccentertv.com. There's a section there for you to fill out your information, because we would love to talk to you and highlight the work that you're doing. But also, we have so many of these great venues right here in our backyard, such as the Chaldean Cultural Center, the first and only such center in the entire world. And we're happy to be able to highlight the work that they're doing down there. So again, civiccentertv.com. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m.